What's going on, everybody? We are back again for another Mind Over Meta. Phil, how you doing today?
Great. Excited to talk about some 40K. Emperor's Children just hit the meta, so we're finally seeing them in terms of tournament reps that are taking them legally. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it to see where we're at, because I think we had a big weekend. We had a lot of tournaments with a lot of players, and that makes for some very interesting data.
Yeah, we're looking at probably, I think, between 4 and 5 times as many games played as the previous weekend being Easter. So lots of data, lots of wins, lots of X and ones. Let's dive right in. Who walked away this week with the most X and ones? Just venturing a guess, I'm sure it's not an obvious answer.
Well, it was Eldari. Who would have thought between all the detachments, they did incredibly well. They had 19 X&O X&1s, which is incredibly high. And that's across all of their detachments, but Eldari were by far the best performing faction.
Yeah, they did very well. 16 of the 19 were devoted to Ennead. Who would have thought, they still are out here representing very hard for their faction as a whole. They were also where their one win this weekend came from. And yeah, just doing great, unchecked, still nothing. So, we'll just continue to see that trend. What was next, though, Phil? This army did very, very well and has just been like, last week they turned it down a little, but they've been doing solid for a while.
Yeah, Imperial Knights. They have been exceptional. They've been very good. They've continued to be good. They are a stat check in and of itself, but they are also lethal. Very, very lethal, with a lot of flat 3 damage shooting, a lot of ways to strip cover, and with the inclusion of the sisters that a lot of armies are running now. We're going to talk about a list in a minute about why these Imperial Knights armies are doing so well, but they are, and it is no surprise here. 16 X&O X&1s with 2 tournament wins.
Yeah, doing very, very well. Getting a decent representation, 69 players. That's a solid chunk of people playing some big ass models. So, good for you guys. Still just out here walking all over people with your stompy feet. Up next, we've got Chaos Demons. They only had a 50% win rate on the weekend, but they did get 4 tournament wins, 2 of which were in Shadow Legion and 2 were Demonic Incursion. So, the Index, and I guess it's not a Grotmist. What are we calling the newest data slate, I guess? The DACA detachments, I guess, potentially, just when that all came out. Shadow Legion doing great. Yeah, 15 X and 1s out of 80 players is a very strong percentage.
Yeah, which is great to see, right? Like, Shadow Legion is very good. We are also going to talk about one of their lists here in a minute, because we value it very highly, and you need to understand what's going on inside these armies to actually be able to play into them. And I think they have every tool at their disposal right now. They have Soul Grinders, they have Be'lakor, they have a disappearing unit that will go away after it kills you. Like, there's a lot of things you got to be cognizant of, and the faction as a whole is very strong.
All right. Up next, we got good old Tyranids, the bugs themselves. Only a 51% win rate this week, but they had 2 event wins and 12 X and 1s out of their 54 players. That's also a pretty high percentage. That's almost a quarter of those players able to go X and 1. That is some good representation for sure.
Yeah. Now, 7 of those are Invasion Fleet, and Invasion Fleet were the individuals who got the 1 event win, 1 of the 2 event wins, but the faction as a whole, with Crusher, with Invasion, Vanguard, I know our good friend Frank speaks very highly of, all doing incredibly well. Tyranids are solid right now, and it shows with those X&O, X&1s. If we talk about in a position to win the tournament, they are there. Lane, who's next? There's someone that's still at the top of the meta.
Still doing just fine. Even after getting the good old bonk, it's still Orcs. Orcs are still doing just fine. Who would have thought, when they have some of the most consistent detachments across the board? I think they might only now be second to Death Guard as far as being just like solid choices across the board, honestly. As far as when that book drops, I think Orcs are probably one of the best factions when it comes to having decent detachments top to bottom. Some aren't doing as good, but they're not getting as many players. So, that data isn't quite as reliable, I guess. The 2 Bully Boys players weren't repping very hard with their 33% win percentage. But as a whole, Orcs are doing freaking great. Tactical Brigade brought in 1 win and 3 X and 1s. And Warhorde brought in 3 tournament wins this weekend, all by themselves, and 5 X and O X and 1s.
Yeah, well, Warhorde is good. Orcs are good. They have good data sheets. They have good army rules, and it shows. But there's a codex that's about to come out. It's about to hit the shelves. And it's about to go, well, it just went on pre-order. It's Death Guard, but they have 10 X and O X and 1s with 3 event wins, with repping one index detachment. It's Plague Company, and they are incredibly solid, and they're about to get a lot better.
Yeah, I am not looking forward to that 53% getting even higher, and that player count has already gone up. But 38 players playing Death Guard right now, I would be very happy if that number stayed the same, just personally. But I don't think that'll be the case. I think that number,
I don't think so
give
either.
it 3 months, and that number is going to be like pushing 100 players per weekend. I'm pretty sure. I don't know anybody who isn't super excited about that release. So Death Guard, just more good things to come, and already doing great for sure. Then up next, the Bile detachment, doing most of the heavy lifting for Chaos Space Marines. They didn't get any event wins, but they had 10 X and 1 X and O's out of 54. Still almost 20% of players. Still doing well.
Yeah, one of those X and O's was Trey after he beat me this weekend. So there's that. The detachment as a whole is good. Chaos Space Marines are very solid. Bile is a fantastic detachment, and it shows. But if we look at these next two armies, right, and then we start to fall off a little bit. Necrons and Custodes, both with 10 X and O, X and 1s. I was one of those X and 1s. Hurts me a little bit, but that's how it is sometimes. Custodes with one event win, Necrons with an event win. Chaos Space Marines didn't have, like you said already, didn't have any, and then we kind of fall off from there. We don't want to go too much in depth with it because we want to shorten this segment as much as possible. That way we're not just reading data. We really want to get to the meat and potatoes of what is impactful and what we could pass on to you for a mind over meta segment. And that is hitting on some of these lists that did really well. So you as a player can understand what you need to be prepared for.
All right. Well, what are we going to start with? What are we taking a look at? What list is first on deck?
So the first list we're going to go over is our friends over in Austria, the Alpine Cup. They had 203 players over 5 rounds. They had a 6th final playoff round, leaving us with one undefeated individual. And those absolute lunatics over there not only played 6 rounds of 40K, but after that, 2 days later, they played a teams tournament. And I assume some of these players played in this tournament, played in that. So that was like 12 rounds of 40K, 11 rounds of 40K in the span of a couple days. So they killed it. But we're going to go over the list that won it all, the Shadow Demons Chaos list. We have it pulled up here so you can follow along with us at home. It was Nicholas Frischian. I probably butchered that last name, so please, if you see this and you want to tell me how to pronounce it properly, please go ahead. Lane, why don't you give us a little bit of a run through of this list?
Yeah, for sure. Running Shadow Legion, they had Bellicor, of course. You can't even play this detachment without him, I'm pretty sure. You can, but why would you? Up next, the Bloodthirster with the Fade to Darkness enhancement. That is the enhancement that allows you to just pull yourself right off the board. As soon as you kill something in combat and you're not engaged anymore, you just go, okay, cool, we're back in Deep Strike, ready to rapid ingress and kill something again. 6 Nurglings, 5 Seekers, a Cursed Cultist, 16-man with a Dark Commune attached, and the Leaping Shadows enhancement as well. And then 3x5 Raptors. Oh, and a cultist mob as well. Can't forget those cultists. And then 1 Beast of Nurgle, 18 Screamers, and that is it.
Yeah, a very interesting list. It stands out to me, one, those Raptors, they're good for scoring. They also have the uppy down trick. After they kill something, they could go back into Deep Strike, which makes them quite a bit of an asset. That 16-man of a Cursed Cultist, that full squad, that is a scouting Cursed Cultist. So they could jail you very, very easily with that scouting group, get up in your face, especially with the Nurglings to protect that scout move and screen you out. And then Screamers are just great at scoring. They are very, very, very good at scoring, and they're very solid across the board. This just seems like an army that scores incredibly well. Is there anything that stands out to you here? Because the Bloodthirster, something we've seen before. Nurglings, obviously something very common. That's a lot of Screamers. A Beast of Nurgle is like the iconic scoring piece for Chaos Demons now. But that Accursed Cultist brick, I know Nick has talked about it multiple times before. It's good to see that it was effective.
Yeah, I have seen the ACDC brick run as well, and it definitely can put the pressure on being able to just scout up the board, go get in your opponent's face, and just be very problematic to chew through is very, very nice. And also screamers right now, I think are pretty consistent in terms of what you're trying to do with this list. It looks like that he is really trying to just go, all right, turn 3, here's just, the ACDC brick has probably kind of already jailed you. And screamers are like actually sneaky good, I feel like right now. They have basically the Deathwing Knight attack profile. They hit on threes, 3 attacks each, strength 6, AP2 damage 2 with anti-vehicle monster 4 up. Like they just trade into almost anything, and for 160 points for a 6-man, like I don't know. I think they actually do have a lot of play, and that is honestly a linchpin unit for his list. And they just really must have been doing quite a bit of work for him to go undefeated.
Absolutely. Yeah, they definitely stand out to me. But the things I'm not seeing in here that I usually see, Blood Crushers, not in this list. Fleshhounds, not in this list. I think that's, the Raptors kind of do that job, right? That the Fleshhounds do. But really, besides the Bloodthirster, there's no corn in this list. Yeah, that is the only corn is the Bloodthirster itself. So that is really interesting. And I think this just shows a different style of that Shadow Legion list, except for, yes, you have a Bloodthirster. Yes, you have Be'lakor. Those are like, everyone likes them. They are quite good. I don't see why not.
Yeah, I mean, and the list, I don't know, between the Bloodthirster and those Screamers, this list is insanely fast with a lot of units that can hit pretty well into most things. I know, even if your Bloodthirster is on the board or whatever, having some Screamers to rapid ingress as well could have been a great tech piece, because they move so far. They have flyover mortals. They can maybe hop a screen and go tie up something behind it. Like pretty good, pretty spicy. What would you say with the armies you run in particular would be things to keep in mind if this is a winning list? What are things you're looking at, like maybe I should maybe tech into this, or look at doing a couple of certain strategies when it comes to the game itself if you're to run into Shadow Legion?
Yeah, so the one thing that concerns me the most is I don't want the Bloodthirster disappearing multiple times, especially into my Custodes, because if he's able to like go into a squad of Wardens and pick the full squad up, he shouldn't be able to do that. But like I have to be super cognizant of what the Bloodthirster goes into. If it's going into my scouting units, like my Witch Seekers or Prosecutors, I don't want that to happen either. I actually want him to be in a position where he has to go into the squad of Wardens, and I can pop the 4 Feel No Pain. I can live through it. I can keep it in combat and then kill it in return. So that's something I'm super cognizant of. But also, those Screamers, pretty scary for my Custodes in terms of anti-everything. So you're trying to, one, get the Bloodthirster locked in a turn. Maybe that's with a heroic, because honestly, with my Wardens, I'm not necessarily super scared of it. So I am staging them in a position where they're within 6, so I can heroic in and keep them alive, and then force that brick to stay. That accursed cultist brick scouting, and then jailing me up, I have to avoid. So maybe I put a couple extra units into Deep Strike. That way, especially on missions like Search and Destroy and things like that, I don't get prevented from pushing my natural. I have to be able to get on it, and I have to be able to get on it turn 1, because otherwise I'm going to be down in the primary scoring game, which isn't good. What about you, Lane? Is there anything that sticks out to you in terms of the Asher Militarum? How would they deal with something like this?
You nailed it. Of course, the Bloodthirster is the biggest problem, right? If you are just letting him pick up units over and over and over, you are going to be on the losing end of that game. People, I've talked to people, they're like, well, I'll just keep feeding him trash and keep screening him out. You must be running way more trash. I take a fair amount of trash, and I can't do that sustainably all game, because a lot of it's going to get eaten by other things. You have to have the buddy system. You always need to have something that can heroic intervene and say, cool, you can kill one of my units, but not both. Sometimes it's Guardsman. Sometimes for me, it's Bulgrin. That is my preferred method if I always can, just to tie him up. I have played a game into this. I heroiced into Be'lakor, and he charged the Bulgrin with a Bloodthirster, and he put both of them into that unit of Bulgrin, and they lived with one dude. And I'm like, sweet, that's all I need, right? So having things that are going to keep that Bloodthirster on the ground are so important. And the buddy system is the best way to do it. You just always need to make sure, okay, he charged a tank. Cool. Doesn't matter. Here's guardsman. You just literally can't split your attacks well enough to deal with both things. You might kill a big thing for me, but I'll at least kill you and you're done. And that's all that matters. The next thing, a cursed cultist, you really are just you're either just trying to keep them busy and not deal with them, or you need to deal with them in full, I think. They can be such a pain with the 3 wounds and the 1 wound, and it's kind of one of those things you either commit to it and you just say, this is all I'm dealing with this turn, or you just throw trash at them and try to keep them from charging and tying you up. Because that Blood Surge can really be a pain. And then last but not least, Screamers are just pretty decent into a lot of profiles, having anti-vehicle monster and just strength 6. You gotta just really be conscious of your spacing. What I like to do when it comes to screening is say, okay, well, you can move this far, so I'm gonna move 2 inches past that, because you can't fly over me and end your move behind me now. You're still stuck in front of that screen. And that's about the easiest way, I would say, to deal with Screamers for most armies that can screen well, at least. But yeah, I mean, this list just really, if you can't deal with greater demons, you better focus on that trash and get it down early, because a lot of this isn't terribly, terribly tough to kill. The Raptors up down for scoring. Screamers can hit decent, but they're still not that hard to kill either. It's really going to depend on what army you play, but if you can kill the bigs, great, do it. If you can't, kill all the trash, and Be'lakor and Bloodthirster can run around the rest of the game, killing your army, but not scoring any points.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. Next one up, over in Velikon, Hamish Reeves. Down in New Zealand, Imperial Knights getting the win. We already talked about it when we wrapped up some of the top armies in the meta in terms of X and O, X and 1s. And Hamish is one of those X and O's. X, O, and 1. No, X and O. My apologies. So he took Noble Lance. And surprise, surprise, who do we see at the top of the list? It's Canis. Every Imperial Knight list that I've ever seen, Andy, when he talks about Imperial Knights, it is Canis and then whatever else you want, because he is just so freaking good as a whole. And then working our way down, we have a Knight of Tropos. I have not seen one of those in a competitive list, but there he is, 450 points. And then we have Halvrin, 3 Warglaves, an Assassin, 2 Sisters of Battle Immolators with a 10-man Sister of Battle squads that get split up between those 2 Immolators, and a Subductor squad as well for more scoring overall. So, Lane, what stands out to you here? Obviously, Canis is Canis. We don't need to harp on him too much, but the rest of this list is pretty interesting.
It is. It definitely is. I do think if you're going to lean one way or the other, I know they're 10 more points, but Warglaves are always the better option. I think in general, the twin autocannons, I feel like just AP1 isn't always amazing. It does help to have the sisters. Those immolators will at least help you ignore cover, for sure. That helps a bit. But triple Warglaive, pretty good. Can't complain with that. I think this is the first list I've seen that's run 2 immolators, though. Normally, people are just kind of taking 1 and trying to keep it fairly safe, at least in the list I've seen. I don't know, maybe you've been talking to Andy. Has he been looking at running 2 immolators just to make sure he has the redundancy?
So he's gone back and forth between the 2, because the one thing that they provide as well is just more units. And I think in this list, my perception is that is what they're there for. Because with the Knight of Tropos, if you're going to run 2 bigs, which is a perfectly sound strategy, you need a few more scoring units, and that other immolator definitely provides it.
Yeah, it definitely does always help. I mean, anything that can free up a few more points for scoring. Immolators are just a hair less than a knight, but they provide just something that your opponent... do you ever really want to shoot at an immolator when you're facing sisters or knights, Phil? Not really.
No,
You've
probably
always
not.
got Canis or another big knight in your face. You're like, oh god, I gotta kill this thing. But yeah, it's always interesting to see what people do with their 1,600 or 1,550 points, because Canis is just not an option. He's a must. So it's always interesting to see what people do. The Knight of Tropos, have not seen one of those. The Mysterious Guardian enhancement is super nice. You can take it off the board. The classic uppy downy does give you a little bit more flexibility. It can really make your opponent have to worry about screening their backline all the way throughout the game, and just having that threat is very nice. Other than that, I mean, it's a fairly standard. Imperial Knights don't have a lot of options still. Hopefully that'll change within the next year, but it's just a very, very solid list.
Yeah, no surprises here. But if Lane, for you as a Eshmil Tarn player, what are you doing specifically to deal with something like this? Right? Are you teching differently? Are you playing differently? Is there anything you're more cognizant of?
Well, lists like this are another reason of why I play combined. Knights, they are very good in the meta. I will always want lethals, even if it's just to help me kill the mini knights. One of the things, there's always that option. It's the same thing we talked about with the last thing, with the last army. Kill the bigs or kill the littles. Generally, I think in Imperial Knights, just try to kill all their other things if you can and keep the others busy. A lot of the time is the right option, but if they just yeet Canis at you, if you have remotely the ability to bring him down, you need to do that. And one of the other things I always like to do is I don't try to initiate much when it comes to trades with them. I try to give as little as possible early and make them keep stepping out to do things, because they have fewer pieces than most armies do, right? If you can make them take those first initial steps and hang their first pieces, that is the goal. Even if you have top of turn, you do need to get pressure on before the end of the game, but even just waiting an extra turn or two and just really trying not to give anything away for free where they have to step out, and you can get a unit or two off the board for an army that has so few, can just make the secondary game so much harder for them. And also, I try to be the one who's always denying primary. Like, I will keep guardsmen. I'm not going to try to hold any primary, but I'm damn well going to make sure I deny you yours in this matchup.
Yeah, which we talked about in some of our other videos, right? Like Imperial Knights, Chaos Knights, they have a lot of OC. But you have enough battle line, especially 2 OC apiece, to just swarm these objectives and just be like, okay, like I'm not going to charge you, I'm not going to fight you, but I am going to out OC you on this natural, and you're going to have to kill a 10-mana guardsman. And that means that valuable shooting is not going to go into the things that you don't want it to go into, which is, your knights, your Bulgrin. Like, you want to keep those as safe as possible for as long as possible.
Yep. Yeah. What about for you? Anything, playing Custodes or GSC, I feel like is probably the worst matchup into this. What are you looking at?
Yeah, so with my Custodes, like Wardens or Custodian Guard or whatever else I'm taking, honestly, this matchup is very interesting. Based on the number of units they have, they're almost giving me an advantage because I have so few units. And if I can put a squad of Wardens into a Knight of Tropos or a Canis, I can really, really damage those things with +1 to wound, because that means I'm wounding both of them on 4s. I have access to dev wounds. I have access to a lot of attacks. I'm going to be -2, flat 2 damage apiece. I can go into those and deal a lot of damage. And if you sprinkle in any Caladius shooting, which have lethal hits against monsters and vehicles, and twin linked, the shooting there can be a little oppressive. So if they make a mistake and they hang one of the big knights out, and I can get into it with combat, or I can get into it with shooting in combat, the game can be over very, very quickly. I have a lot of ways to interact in the combat phase with Fight on Death and interrupts. So if they charge me in multiple positions across the board, I will Fight on Death in one location, I will interrupt in the other, and I can really make a mess of people's plans. So I would not say this is an easy win for Custodes, but I will say it is very easy for me to push differentials very hard, because you have a lot of OC with Guard. I have a lot of OC because my Wardens are 3 apiece with a banner, which you're always taking. And I'm gonna have 18 OC on an objective, which is quite a bit that Knights can't deal with. Now, GSC, it's going to be the same thing in the sense of what you do, Lane, for Ashmel Tarm. I'm going to out OC you on objectives. I have a lot of mining lasers. I'm going to try to overwhelm you. I have access to mortal wounds with my rock grinders, which I really like in my final day. With tank shock, with combat, with +1 to hit. I like all of those things into some very, very big units. And I can screen you out pretty well too. So I'm looking to screen you off everything, which can be effective. And you're just killing trash. So I don't really care. And it's all coming back. So I actually My highest strength is strength 12, which is the only thing. Is the big knights, the Knight of Tropos, he is toughness 12. Yeah, and so is Canis. So I'm wounding them on 4s. I do have access to some sneaky stuff in there, but I have enough AP to push them to their invul every time, which is important as well.
Yeah, and the fact that, I mean, just as a base, having only a 3-up save on any of those knights, just the sheer volume of flamers even can just slowly melt away a knight with enough saves forced on them.
+1 to wound, or +1 to hit. Sorry, reroll all wounds. It's pretty good. All right, we'll move on to our last one.
Awesome.
By request, we have Emperor's Children, 5-0-1. Spur ended up winning 5-0-1 with Emperor's Children, which is our first look at them in the tournament environment. It was over in Sweden with 68 players. 4-0-1, not 5-0-1. And let's give this a run through. Lane Matt keeps telling me that Demon Princes are pretty good. Well, Jesper said, yes, they are, and I'm taking 3 of them.
He did. Yes, he took 3 of them, and he is playing Coterie of the Conceited, which is where you make your wagers and say, this is how many things I'm going to kill. And then as you kill those things and you rack up that tally of kills that you bet correctly on, you just get better and better. You start getting lethal hits, sustained hits, crit hits on 5s once you max it out at 7 points, and you really just can kill anything once you hit that point. It's just doing that is the hard part, I think, and he apparently did it almost every single time. And yes, 3 Demon Princes with wings, solid start. They definitely do some work. 3 Lord Exultants, and 1 Lord Cacophonist, and Lucius himself dropping in there, a great unit, especially with that lone op, and then followed up by 3 5-man Infractor units, 3 Noise Marine 6-mans, and then 2 Rhinos, and 1 Chaos Spawn allied in.
And then 1 squad of Tormentors.
I think this has... And 1 squad of Tormentos. Yep, scrolled on past them. Yeah, pretty dang solid. I know this is fairly close to what Matt has been looking at himself. I think he has only been running 2 of those Demon Princes and has opted for a few more like Tormentors and other things of that nature. But honestly, this is pretty dang close to exactly what he has been running. And so I guess Matt must be onto something. But it isn't Coterie. But I don't know if that matters. I think Emperor's Children just has like, these are our best data sheets, and for the most part, whatever they're in, they're probably going to be some of your best options, to be fair. But yeah, what pops out to you? You've talked to Matt even more than I have about this. What are you looking at when you look at this list?
Yeah, so Demon Princes with wings are scary. Whether it's Mercurial Host or Coterie, they are terrifying because they do mortal wounds. They have an obnoxious threat range. They have fly, so they're getting over all your screens, and they are absolutely monstrous. Now, with saying that, the 3 squads of Noise Marines are kind of terrifying because them getting out of a Rhino with all of their shots can be quite a lot. So just looking on that, that's 5-man Noise Marine squads. So probably 2 of them are getting stacked up in 1 Rhino, and another Noise Marine squad and maybe a squad of Infractors are getting stacked up in the other. And they're just rushing around the board, getting out of Rhinos, dumping a bunch of shots and killing things. So those Noise Marines you have to be cognizant of, because inside of a Rhino, they are relatively safe. Lucius the Eternal, when he gets his lone op, he's probably standing next to one of the Demon Princes and just kind of escorting each other down the board before they go up and kill things, because he is one of the only fights first units in this codex, but he once again is a monster in combat. So overall, the list doesn't surprise me. The one thing that I would say is the fact that there's only 1 Lord Cacophonist. I've seen people run 2 even or 3, but we've gone with the 3 Lord Exultants here Jesper has, and those Infractor units are lethal. Problem is they're made of tissue paper and they will just fall over and die. But the hope is that 5-man with the Lord Exalted go in and they kill the things that they need to actually kill. Maybe they need a little bit of Noise Marine help. Maybe they need a little bit of Demon Prince help. but they need to go in and kill the things that they have to kill.
Yeah, and that is one of the few things that I've talked to Matt about, and he has been so impressed with the Infractors and the Lord Exultants, opting for them over the. I mean, there's not any flawless blades in here, and that was basically the same conclusion Matt came to. Infractors just trade for their points into really anything so much better. Even with the anti-everything 3-up, it just seems like it's not enough attacks and not enough for your points. It just really doesn't feel like the flawless blades really are able to just pick up the things they need to, whereas Infractors, even if you have to commit 2 to like a super big target, they just seem like they trade as well as anything when it comes to a melee unit in this book.
Yeah, and which is a shame because they are super cool units, but just like everything else in 40k does, it will all come back around. It will be good eventually, it'll be bad eventually. The cyclical nature of 40k is it will always happen. So right now, Infractors, Lord Exultants, 3x3 seem very interesting and seem like a very good way to play it in terms of actually getting the kills you need to get in Coterie. Only one Lord Cacophonous. Obviously, that was effective for Jesper, and yeah, I'm excited to see where Emperor's Children kind of fall now that they're actually entering the meta.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty dang good like baseline when it comes to if you're getting into the faction yourself. This is a good kind of starting point. You've played into Matt a couple of times. You know, we've talked about it with these other lists. What are you as a player looking at doing? What's your game plan when you see Emperor's Children across the board?
Well, with Custodes, mine specifically, it is very tough, I think, Emperor's Children to go in because I do have access to Fight on Death and I do have access to Interrupt, and I am quite good in combat with the 4 Funeral Pains and the 4 Pinballs with the Wardens. I think it is a very tough matchup. If I stage properly and you have to go into me and trade and you bounce, which is very, very likely, it puts me in such a good position that you're not actually able to get the kills that you need to get for Coterie, which has been my experience in the games that I've run against it. Now, I will say, Noise Marines are good. Lord Cacophonouses are good, but the fact that there's only one doesn't scare me nearly as much because Lord Cacophonous does have the flat 3 damage, which can push through a lot of and kill full models of Custodes and not allow me to kind of split those wounds up and absorb a couple extras. So is Coterie very, very good? Yes, absolutely. I would say it's not a great matchup in a Custodes. I think it's just I pick up whatever I need. Now, Genestealer Cult is a little different because of how mobile they are and the amount of units. They can just go in and pick up anything they want, and they will get the kills that they're betting on because I have so much trash and because of how quick they are, and I really can't hide from them. Those Infractor units are quick, and the Demon Princes are incredibly fast. So trying to go into both of those is tough. So matchup, if we're talking about teams that I would want in any way, they're just too fast. Now, I do have a lot of trash, so like you have to chew through quite a bit of it, but yeah, that's between the two. Custodes, I really like the matchup, and Genestealer Cult, I would avoid at all costs.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I've really looked at, if you're playing into Coterie specifically, I think it does end up changing your dynamic and what you're putting out first a little bit. You are wanting to put out your biggest bricks first, right? As it just the hardest things to chew through at once. So they're going to have to commit more of their resources if you can. Like if you have any 20 mans of GSC, right? I do think that's one of the better things to throw first against Coterie specifically, because they're going to be working a lot harder early to get some of those points out. And I think that can help. As a guard player, I just run Bulgrin because I don't want to have to deal with hard melee matchups with, much thinking. I just like to go, here's something that has -1 to damage, slap me all you want, and then you're just stuck in the middle. And that does help. Matt played it great, though. We had a very close game, and they still can chew through some stuff. I can't imagine what these units can do when they have 5-up crits with lethals and sustains. So definitely got to be cognizant of, yeah.
All right, Lane, we've gone over 3 lists, all a bunch of winners. Congratulations for everyone that did well this weekend or had a great time. Played some good 40K. I know we did down in the Springs. So we have a bunch of tournaments coming up that we're getting ready for. And hopefully this Mind Over Meta helped you prepare for what's going to be your next tournament or maybe your next game or your local meetup or whatever the case is to get ready for that next game.
Yeah. These armies are definitely, maybe not all, meta-medices, but they are all obviously pretty good. You need to be prepared to see them. This will hopefully be that little extra bump you need to perhaps win that game when you randomly pair them first round, even though you didn't want to, and walk away with a win. But we can't wait to see you guys next week. We're super excited to see what the results are from this upcoming weekend's tournaments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Phil, any last thoughts?
No, thanks guys for tuning in. We appreciate it.
And don't forget, everybody, victory isn't given, it's forged, and it's forged right here on Mastercrafted. We'll see y'all next time.